Welcome to an episode of Coffee and Content. I'm here with my awesome friend, James Mackler. James is, he's first and foremost a dad and a husband, but he's also an incredible servant to this country. When 9/11 happened, he decided to enlist in the Air Force, and I think his commitment to serve this country hasn't stopped since then. He does pro bono work in the federal court system. You're just an awesome guy, man, and I appreciate you taking some time to be on the first person on this show. And as you saw, we just set this up, just sort of figuring this all out. Yeah. And the concept of this show is really about the way that communicating with people is changing, sort of dramatically in the world right now, and sort of what we think about that, right? You know what I mean? What we think about how to reach people. My theory is that it's changing so quickly that none of us are really able to fully embrace or adapt to it, because we still grew up with past things, we both got kids, and our kids never grew up in an era that didn't have internet, or didn't have phones, or didn't have tablets, right? Or didn't have Wi-Fi almost everywhere that they went, right?
Now I'm wrestling the tablets away from my kids.
Right. And so this is sort of the environment that we're in today. But we are, in that generation. How old are you, by the way?
I'm 46.
Okay, I'm 43. I just turned 43. So we're in this generation where we did grow up without the internet, right? Like, we were like the last generation to grow up without the internet. But we're also currently responsible for the world. You know what I mean? We're in that generation where we're expected to step up and lead. And so I think we've got some of the boomers in us, but we've got to get more and more of the millennials and the Gen Z in us as well, right? You know what I mean? In order to be able to effectively communicate to the next generation. So so that's what this show is all about.
Awesome.
Is about that.
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thanks, man. And you have you stepped into a new arena for yourself in terms of service, over the last couple of years. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've always had a history of service, I think, really, and it's partly, I think, the way I was raised. My grandfather was a World War II veteran. My mom was a public school teacher. My dad was a doctor, and I was just raised among people who believed in serving their community, and that really had an impact on me, I think, all through growing up. The example that you talked about a little bit was after 9/11, the attacks of 9/11 happened. I felt like this must be how my grandfather felt after Pearl Harbor. I've got to do something. I can keep living my life the way I am, that's an option, or I can step into the arena and try and make a change. So I left my law practice, I joined the Army, flew helicopters for the 101st Airborne Division, and then I was a prosecutor for a long time, prosecuting military sexual assaults. Came back to private practice eventually, and then had this same feeling that I had after 9/11, only this time it was after the presidential election. Like, man, the world has changed. And again, I keep doing what I'm doing, or step back into the arena. So I resigned from my law firm and, threw my hat in the ring to run for office. And I ran for the U.S. Senate, as you know, and you know how that all went, and it was an incredible experience. And I did learn.
My viewers don't know.
Sure,
so just like 1 minute, talk about that experience a little bit.
Well, I didn't know what to do. I'd never run for elected office.
It was your first time.
Never wanted to run for elected office.
Right.
I'd only been engaged as a voter and maybe, just watching from the sidelines, right? Yeah. And I felt bad about that because things had changed so much. So I know from my military experience, and from your business experience, that you need to surround yourself with the best people possible and understand what you don't know and follow the lead from people who do. Trust your team until they give you a reason not to.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I just went out and hired the very best team I possibly could. Hired a campaign manager, hired consultants, and launched a Senate race, and found that the response among Tennesseans to someone with a genuine desire to serve was unbelievable, and it was really heartwarming to me. I raised $1 million.
People are good, man.
They're really good. I had conversations just like this across the table with people who I might have never met otherwise, might have never talked to otherwise, who I might have been afraid to talk to otherwise, who in this context were civil and polite and really wanted to talk about issues. It wasn't like social media. It wasn't like Fox News or CNN or CNBC. It was just a conversation. So it was awesome. And people were generous in terms of contributing. They were generous in terms of their time and their support. And I loved it. I had a mission focus. I woke up every morning. I knew what I needed to get done that day. I worked hard to get it done. Woke up the next morning and do it again, just like a military deployment. I was going to get there. I was going to do my best, survive, and come home. And that's exactly how it went. And I was going to do it until something stopped me. And it turned out that about a year into the race, Governor Bredesen, who, as you know, very, very well known, very, very well loved, former governor, former mayor, got into the race, and it was never about me, so I stepped aside and decided to help him with his race. He ultimately didn't win, but I was proud to be part of that whole process.
Okay,
so that's how it went.
Great. Thank you for recapping that. Yeah.
And I got to say, you talked about the influence of media, and I feel like I've always been very aware of media's influence, sort of self-aware, I think, of the influence of media on myself. I'm someone who will today see an Army commercial and tell my wife I want to go back to active duty. I mean, it just has such a visceral impact on me, and I don't know why that is.
I'm sure the people who are making those commercials are like super happy to hear that.
I can't help it. I really can't, and she knows it. I'll tear up and be like, I want to go do that again. And so that, even though that means a lot, that has a real emotional impact on me.
Right.
And I'm not sure why that is, but I miss that service. But I think I'm just someone who can be influenced by good media.
So what, you didn't have a brand per se, right? And I mean, I think now the reality is if you're running for office, you have to have a brand, right? You know what I mean? So you didn't have a brand.
No.
What was that process like of building a brand, building the brand of James Mackler?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time talking with my family and with my team about my values, and what we ultimately came down to was that service was really my brand. And so most of the times that I spoke to folks, I said, if you remember anything about me, know that I believe in service and that I believe in the value of service. And that's not just my military service, because I know there are a lot of ways to serve. It's my service as a federal public defender to help people who can't afford legal representation, or my service in the military, but as a prosecutor, or doing search and rescue in the mountains. I really, truly believe that we need to get back to a time when people are in office to serve, and when we can say to politicians, thank you for your service, the way we say it to the military. We're not there. We're not even close to there, but we used to be. I mean, I think about these recent funerals, George H.W. Bush, right?
That's okay. That was a powerful thought.
Well, it's troubling to me. I want my kids to see the value of service. I want them to see someone in office who's there to serve, and not to serve themselves, not to build their brand, not to get their next vote or their next contribution, but for service. Service for service's sake. So that's been my brand. And I don't know if I consciously thought about it that way, but it's who I am and it's what I believe, and that's what I want people to remember about me.
Right. So let's talk about breaking through the noise, right? I mean, you're brand new to this entire process,
right?
And just in the situation of Governor Bredesen, I mean, obviously, I think that was the right thing to do, just based on where he was in his career and the amount of support he was going to be able to garner. But I think it speaks to a larger thing, which is we are seeing a new wave of younger people. You're young, right? Who feel the calling to serve, but don't really have a brand, right? You know what I mean? Like we live in this 24/7, 365 news cycle that's constantly pumping out these different brands, right? These political brands. You didn't have one. Talk about the process of building a brand in this climate, in this environment.
I mean, if you're not someone who's familiar with marketing, or maybe even if you are, the term brand sounds artificial to me initially. And so I never would have thought about developing a brand. I want people to understand
who you are,
what I believe.
That's right.
That becomes my brand, but I think people have to understand that to start with.
That's right.
Is your brand isn't something you make up. It's not something you formulate.
Definitely not.
It's just,
you don't even control it. It's really what people come to know
true.
you as, right?
So for me, it was a matter of looking at what I've done and what I believed, and then figuring out how to express that in a clear manner. And I had a lot of discussions with my wife about that too, because I'd talk about my military service, and she would say, you've got so much more than that. You've served in so many ways. Not everyone, military service doesn't resonate with everybody. It turns some people off. They don't want to hear about a military veteran necessarily. So she'd say to me, you need to talk about going to a jail in Kentucky to meet with someone who has no friends in the world and is accused of the worst crime ever, because that's part of service too. Or talk about the women who were assaulted in the military that you went to help, because that's another form of service. So I think it has to be authentic. It has to be true to who you are. I think you have to be able to tell those true personal stories that back it up, and I think you have to say it a lot, because people. That's why I would explicitly say, if you remember anything about me, know that I believe in service.
Right.
And that just became something I said a lot, and eventually people would begin to remember that, yeah, he's someone who believes in service. And I think to break out of the noise, we're living in a time now where that's so uncommon. We're being unscripted, and we're really trying to serve. It almost stands out in its uniqueness,
right,
which I think
right.
wouldn't have been the case years ago, but it's definitely the case now. I mean, there's so many people who are unabashedly saying, I'm here because I want to be bigger, be greater, do more for myself, or even if not for myself, more for my tribe, which isn't what I want to do either. I love this country, and I've seen what happens when we get tribal. I saw that in Iraq. I don't want us to get tribal. I don't want to be a leader of a group or a tribe. I want to simply help everyone be better and serve. So it keeps coming back to you.
That's awesome, man. So you said you have to say it over and over and over again, and I think like this is one of those things that is so hard for us to really come to terms with. In terms of trying to get our message across, right? Trying to communicate something to the market. We know it inherently as consumers of content because we know we're overwhelmed and it's constantly coming at us from a variety of channels. But when it's our turn to try to get our message across, we somehow don't factor in
That's totally true.
Our consumer self, right?
It's uncomfortable to say something again and again and again.
Right. It's super uncomfortable. Right.
Yeah, it is.
But you have to.
Yeah, people would, exactly. I would say to folks on my team or my family, am I really going to give this the same talk again? And they say, yeah, because a lot of these people haven't heard it, and even if they have,
nobody
they don't
hears
remember
anything,
it.
man. Nobody hears anything. No one remembers anything. Right.
So I'd have to continually, even though it seems strange to me at first, to say again, if you remember anything about me, know that I believe in service. You have to say it truly and authentically each time, and just keep saying it.
Yeah. So I want to have a brief sidebar conversation about the phenomenon that is Donald Trump, and not from a policy perspective or none of the controversy stuff. Actually, from the brand perspective, right? Just from the brand of Donald Trump, that I think was his number one asset and why he won, and what that says about being competitive. Really, I think in any industry, but I think it's true in politics, right? I mean, I think what he showed was because he had that bigger brand. He could overwhelm and overcome a lot of the things that other people rated more highly as reasons why he should lose, and they ended up not being reasons why he should lose, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
So where do you see everything? We now have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I mean, look at what he's doing on Twitter every day. I mean, he is fully leveraging that platform to continue to get his message out, right, all the time. And it's sort of like breaking every single rule, but now we're sort of used to it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Where do you think this is all taking us? I mean, because I think in a lot of ways what he's doing is game changing.
Well, I mean, you said he's breaking every rule, and he's done nothing if not redefine the rules.
100%.
The new normal for not just social media, but for politics in general,
particularly for politics,
it continues to shift.
Right.
Largely because of what he and his supporters have managed to do. And I think a big part of a political campaign is trying to build your own brand, but also rebrand the other person in a way that's favorable to you. During the Senate race, I don't think it was successful, but people wanted to brand Governor Bredesen as Chuck Schumer's candidate. And he wanted to be branded as a public servant for Tennessee. And I think it's very similar, but I think if you have a brand like the president does, which was so strong, no one was going to rebrand him.
No.
He was the
rebrander.
Yeah, he was going to redefine his own brand as many times as he wanted to.
Right. And others.
And others, that's right. He did a great job.
I mean,
he'd come up with a clever nickname for someone else.
And that was it.
And it would stick. Whether it was Crooked Hillary, boom, everyone remembers it.
And that was it.
Here we are to this day, years later, and everyone can remember the brand that he assigned to his opponent instantly. Amazing. Really. And so that was very, very effective and continues to be effective. But his brand clearly put forth who he was. And in fact, right after the election, I wrote an editorial to the Tennessean that said, look, we just elected someone with truly no history of service. And that wasn't an observation I just figured out.
No, I mean,
it was something he was very plain about.
Right.
And to me, that was very disturbing because it wasn't someone that my kids could look up to see the value that I wanted them to see. Other people clearly had different values. That wasn't a primary concern for them, and they made their own choice. But that bothered me a lot, and I wrote an editorial about it. And again, it wasn't that he pretended to. He never claimed to be something he wasn't. He's Donald Trump. He puts his name up on giant buildings.
1,000%. Yes.
And it's about him.
Yeah.
And even America First is that kind of policy. I mean, it's broader because it's America, but it still very much sounds like, I'm looking out for number one. And yes, I love this country, and I want this country to be as full a country as it can be. But I think that involves engagement with the rest of the world as opposed to isolation from the rest of the world.
So thinking about like what it takes to get anything done anymore, right? I mean, I actually think politics is one of the most true forms of the free market that there is, right? Because the intellectual side of us, we can debate what's right or what's wrong, but it bears out in the numbers.
I think it can be the most true form, but there's so much disparity. I mean, I'm very, very fortunate to be able to even consider to have run for the Senate, to be able to run requires a lot of resources. And
okay, well, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
That's where I want to go to, right? I want to go to the resource piece, right? I mean, I think we have examples, right? We have examples that are showing ways to hack this resource game.
I think
right?
that's true.
And in such a way that you get the resources, but they have like a multiplier effect because they bring along people with them, right? So the Beto O'Rourke, scenario would be the most recent one that really kind of comes to mind. I guess he lost, but he's also now made himself a superstar, right? You know what I mean? Like his brand is ridiculous. And I think he didn't have sort of the network of resources coming into it.
I view the resources in two ways. There's two sides to this. So there's the resources you need to build and run a campaign, get your name out, all the fundraising, which he was extraordinary at, right? I mean, he was able to do it by going straight to the people in a lot of ways. Awesome, great example. And that's important. I think we should talk some more about that. But there's also more fundamentally, if you want to run for office, you have to quit your job. I mean, he continued to be a congressman. So he was still drawing a paycheck. He still had his job. Most people, I resigned from my law firm. Everyone I know, if you run for office, you can have another job, but not really.
Not really. not be competitive, right?
Right. Not really. Different if you're already in Congress, but other than that, holding another political position or trying to hold a regular job, very, very difficult. And you can't draw a salary from a campaign. So you have to be in a position in life where you can set aside your income and maybe for a year or 2 years. And you may raise tens of millions of dollars. You may be able to pay your staff and your consultants. You may be able to put your ads on TV, but you still got to feed yourself and your family. And that's not practical for most people. I'm, like I say, very fortunate in the sense that I've been able to save a little bit of money, and my wife works, and we're able to do it, not easily and not repeatedly, but we're able to do it. And not everyone, in fact, almost nobody, in the grand scheme of things, can do that. That's one of the resource problems. The other resource problem, which is just as big a problem, because if no one hears your voice, it really doesn't matter. You can leave your job and scream all you want for 2 years. If you can't get the word out, no one knows. So I think absolutely it's true that we are just beginning to see how to leverage alternative media, and that's awesome. And I want to continue to see that grow because it is an equalizer. But the other side of it is, I think, maybe always going to be there, maybe not. And I'm sort of thinking this through as I'm saying it. But if you didn't have to raise the tens, hundreds of millions of dollars, then maybe you could continue to work a regular job for at least more of the time. Because so much of politics is simply raising money.
It seems to me that there's a lot of parallels between politics today, not always, right? But politics today and entrepreneurship. Probably one parallel that's not quite there is the definitive winner, right? Because I think in entrepreneurship there can be lots of winners, and in politics there's always a definitive winner. But I think what rang a bell for me was when you said that most people can't afford to leave their jobs. And I think about, the number of people who say that they want to start a business, but they can't afford to leave their job, right? There's an interesting parallel there. And I think that a lot of the tools, I just think that so much of this stuff is these are sweeping changes that aren't industry specific. They're sweeping changes that yes, they're impacting politics. Now, it's a little bit different because the campaign finance rules are so interesting there.
Right.
But in the entrepreneur world, you could say the venture capital. You know what I'm saying? It's sort of that unnatural force that makes a lot of market opportunities unreachable, right?
That's
because
true.
if you don't have venture capital, you can't even begin to approach certain market opportunities. It's just not realistic, right? Does that make sense? So it makes me think about, what things do we all have access to, right? We all have access to our phone. We all have access to these social networks. We all can pretty much have access to a pretty inexpensive email marketing service, or maybe even a free one to start. And what can we all do little by little on our own, independent of these things, to sort of build up that flywheel? And HubSpot's a technology company, but they have this concept called the flywheel, which is basically like, the more that you create happy customers, they create word of mouth, which fills the top of your funnel, right? You know what I'm saying? So this concept of a flywheel, how can you use what's table stakes and that we all have access to, how can you use those things to hack the system, right? Like that's what I'm trying to figure out.
And I think the flip side of service, or maybe it's not the flip side, it just goes hand in hand with it often, is sacrifice. And so when I say not everyone can afford it, it's really not everyone can or maybe is willing to make the sacrifice. And that's the same with entrepreneurship. I mean, you got to give up that daily paycheck, that predictability, take some risk, get out there and make your pitch and do the best you possibly can. And that does take sacrifice. And it's the same with going into politics. You've got to sacrifice, at least I think, typically, you have to sacrifice something.
You sacrifice a lot.
In service.
I mean, politics is not something like I would be excited about getting into just because the level of sacrifice, like I've waited, 10 or 20 times. It's just like, man, that's a lot.
It's a lot.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm passionate about entrepreneurship, so those sacrifices feel like nothing to me.
Well, that's what it is. If you're passionate about it, the sacrifice is worth it, and you don't even notice it as much. And that's how I feel about it. There's a big sacrifice, but I'm passionate about it. It's fulfilling to me. It's important. And although it is a zero-sum game in the sense that one person loses, one person wins, you also suddenly have this platform. And can talk about important ideas.
1,000%. And like, that's the thing that when I look at Trump, and I think about the space. So I've been having some conversations recently with some people in the political arena. I'm not a political animal, right? But I mean, I talk to people just because I care about the environment, and I don't mean like the environment like whales and stuff. I mean, I care about that, but I care about our community, our society. I care, right? And so I'm having conversations just to try to bring whatever I know to the table to help people think about things differently. And one of the big things that I think about is, okay, you go through, and this is where it's not a parallel in terms of the mindset. You go through the election, you get your definitive winner, okay, and then like the losers go away. Now in Beto's case, that's not going to happen, right? But like, so many others go away, and I'm like, hold on, you just spent 12 to 24 months building a brand, building a following, building an email list, raising money, and because you lost and you like go away, it's like, whoa,
I agree.
You have a brand. You have a brand.
Not only do you have a brand, but presumably you were in that because it was important to you and because you were passionate about it. Just because you lost, why would you go away? Now, I understand if you don't have the resources anymore, or something else has changed in your life. But no, you're right. You've built a brand, so now you have more than you had before. You have a voice. And I would hope the whole reason you were doing it was to make some kind of change. I totally agree, and it frustrates me to no end when someone who has the ability to continue forward doesn't. Now, as I said, sometimes you might not have the ability, but when my race ended,
I hear a lot about people just feeling like it gets so ugly that they're just like, I don't have the stomach for it anymore, which I can respect.
There's something to that, sure.
Yeah, I can respect that.
But I mean, when I got out of the race, I had launched a political action committee because I wanted to stay involved, and I worked as a surrogate for Governor Bredesen, and I wasn't about to just go away. I wanted to be involved for as long as I possibly could continue to be involved. But you're right. We have a long history in this country and in this state of someone putting, it seems like, everything they've got into something. And then the day after the election, they're like, I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm out.
I mean, you know, in terms of someone who might be considering investing in a political campaign, that's like terrible, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
it's really all or nothing, right? And what I want to say is, look, whether you win or you lose, because it's hard to win, right? So whether you win or you lose, what I want to know that I'm investing in is you and your commitment to making an impact. Like that's really
That's a great point.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like yeah, I want you to win a race or whatever, but like, you know, I'm really investing in you.
So not everyone takes that view.
Yeah, but I do.
You do. I get that, yeah.
That's what I'm thinking about, right?
Yeah, that's really interesting because I think there are several reasons why people invest in a campaign. One is to invest in the individual. They believe in that person. They want to see that brand build. They want to see them continue to make a difference.
Right.
Some people are much more transactional about it. You know, they want to make sure that a Democrat wins or a Republican wins.
Yeah.
And so they're going to contribute to you.
Yeah, that's
and
a different
fine.
thing. That's a different thing.
And then the next Democrat or Republican, you know, whoever they'll invest just as much in that person.
Right.
But I think more and more it's personal. I think more and more making a personal connection is what people want, especially if you're going to get these, you know, multiple smaller contributions and not be relying on PACs or on you know the bigger donors, which I think is a more democratic way to go if you can do it. Is more about a personal connection. That's true.
Yeah. So are you excited about the future?
Yeah, well, you know, since I guess your viewers are going to be seeing this after I've announced it, you know, now everyone hopefully knows or knows from this that I'm running again.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited. I'm excited because, as I said, it's a sense of returning to a mission that I believe strongly about. It's you know, getting back in the aircraft and going flying again, doing something that I know I have to do, and that's really what it comes down to. I feel like I have to do it. The things that motivated me to get involved in politics 2 years ago haven't changed. You know, we're still seeing politicians elected without a history of what I would consider true service, who are still trying to divide us for their own political advantage. This is not, increasingly, it's not a place where I want to raise my kids, and that hurts to say, because I mean, I fought for this country, and so I am excited. I'm excited to be back in the fight, and I'm hoping that this time around, even more than last time, and we saw a lot of increased voter participation last time, but I'm hoping this time we see even more people who are like, I can't stand by anymore. I'm going to get in the fight, however it is. Voting, contributing, putting up signs, knocking on doors, whatever it's going to be. Yeah, I'm excited. And this is a presidential year, and so there should be a little more interest there too on both sides. So yeah, I'm excited.
Good, man, because like nothing ever happens if you're not excited.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm glad you're excited, and you know, I'm excited too, man. I'm excited about all the. I'm just excited about all the opportunity that's out there, and about you know, just seeing glimpses of people taking advantage of the opportunity and of the era of change. You know, I think that we are, you know, unfortunately we're in a space where there's just a lot of negative content that's sort of, you know, permeating and being very, very effective at becoming viral.
Right.
And, you know, the thing is, it doesn't really, for the most part, reflect our lives.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if our lives were really as negative as all of the content that we keep sharing around and being outraged about all the time, like life would be
people
awful, right?
People are motivated by fear. It's not a good motivator. It's not something I want to use. But if you motivate someone by fear, you can cause them to make some decisions that maybe aren't even in their best interest or not well thought through.
Right.
But if you make everyone think that, you know, you should be scared and you better do something right now because something really bad's about to happen. You stop thinking clearly. And you know, so much about even military training is just slowing it down a little bit. You know, deciding, is this really a crisis or is this something where I can plan and think and make clearer decisions? And I'd much rather motivate people by, you know, positive messages, by hope.
1,000%.
You know, because although I am upset and I'm, you know, angry about the way things are happening in this country in a lot of ways, it's not that anger that motivates me. You know, it's the real possibility of positive change. You know, other sides of the same coin, I guess you could say, but it's a big difference. I don't want to be someone who's angry and scared and trying to, you know, hang on to what I've got, you know, at all. That's not who I am. It's not how I want my kids to be.
Awesome, man. Well, dude, thank you so much for you know, taking this morning, and I hope you enjoyed the coffee.
Loved it.
This place is pretty good, right?
It's great.
I was scared. Normally when I come here, there's like not an empty seat around. So this was pretty amazing. I hope they didn't mind that we just plopped in and shot a show. But man, best of luck on the race this year and just everything in your life and your career.
Well,
best of luck, man.
Thank you.
All right, brother.
All right.